the platform. What issues are you running on, and like how would you, present yourself out of the box?
Well, I definitely present myself as someone who's been a lifelong Toronto resident, a journalist, an activist, an artist, a philosopher in this city. I know this city well. With my colleagues at Toronto Truth Seekers, right after April of 2009, when I declared for mayor informally then. I put out a little press release, and then I spoke at the Freedom Fest in early May of 2009. And then I went into action with my colleagues at TorontoTruthSeekers.com during the H1N1 pandemic downtown, and we set up a little table there, a little umbrella, a little truth umbrella, and myself and my colleagues from TorontoTruthSeekers.com, I handed out literally thousands and thousands of vaccine exemption forms and flyers and DVDs every Saturday starting in July of 2009, and we're still on the streets every Saturday now with a small group of anywhere from 10 to 20, 30 at times, people who get out there just for a few hours on a Saturday and let their fellow Torontonians know some of what they found. And so what we tried to do is we tried to react to what we thought was a risk from the H1N1 vaccine, which we thought was possibly dangerous and untested. And it proved to me that there is a market for this information in this city. The radio shows like yourself, like your show, like my show here at CKLN when I had it before I started running. Like the Conspiracy Culture book and DVD store, like Richard Syrett, like Art Bell. There is a huge audience for this information in this city, and there is a huge audience for information in this city that doesn't normally gravitate towards this information, because when you're standing on the street at the south west corner of Yonge and Dundas, for 6, 7, 8 hours, plus a day every Saturday, from July until today, you get an idea of what ordinary people just there on a Saturday walking by are interested in, because if they want to talk to you, they will. If they don't, they won't. And so, there's all these sort of real-time metrics when it comes to understanding the people of Toronto. And I do know that if we share information in calm and consistent ways with people, if we share it on a piece of paper or DVD and don't necessarily engage in conversations that we may not want to have, or we may not have the knowledge base to have. So, if I know a lot about something and you don't, it's hard for us to have a conversation about it. But if I say, hey, take a look at the work of, Dr. Russell Blaylock, Sherry Tenpenny, Andrew Molden, on this DVD, and hear them explain it. And then if you want to talk about it, we can. And if you don't, at least you'll make smarter choices going forward on this whole vaccine issue. So we kind of really tested that, and we were fairly successful and known as one of the most active groups doing this sort of thing in the world. And then for the G20 summit recently, I was postering and flyering like a maniac before it, during it, and after it, to make sure it never happened again, because I saw that as the most traumatic event in this city's history, where 20,000 cops, troops, mercs, and spooks were sent to lock down this city like a giant prison, kick us out of downtown for a week in the summer. And I've seen how our police has acted before then and since then, and they don't normally act like they did at the G20 summit. But, most of us will, quote unquote, do our jobs. And so we have to make sure, as my first platform priority, that we, we keep an eye on what those jobs are. So I really want a full, inquiry into the G20 summit, which I, looked at very, very closely, sort of the G20 martial law, and then following that, the Caribana martial law light, where there was a way too big of a police presence there. Very, very peaceful. Nothing happened between 1,000 cops and 10,000 young black people partying, but they shouldn't have been forced to hang out with each other in such close quarters. The cops should have been nearby, as opposed to forced to mingle with the crowds aggressively. So it seems like someone's trying to use our authorities, our law enforcement authorities, as a stick to whack us like a baby seal. And so I'd like to track back, who that is, and look at the federal government's role and the RCMP's role, who got $500 million of the $1 billion spent on security in what happened at the G20, as opposed to just focusing on the police themselves. And so the first thing is, making sure G20 martial law never happens again. The second thing is stopping big corporations from poisoning us. We know, they do. It's in the news all the time. CBC article recently, 90% of Canadians, full of bisphenol A, turning the boys into girls and turning the girls into breast cancer victims. And so this has to stop, and what the city can do is the city can test things that we're suspicious of, just like the media does for news stories, only we can find solutions to it, whether it's bulk buying of, health solutions or, taking everything out of the bottles that come into this city, putting them into new bottles that don't leak xenoestrogen, and so on. We can redirect the bureaucracy towards cleaning up our daily environments and stopping some of the causal effects of our fatigue or our stress, or our illness. Third is the idea of cutting waste. All the candidates talk about this, except, I've learned as a journalist over the last few years that when candidates talk about waste, they really mean theft. Because when somebody, when George Smitherman was the head of eHealth at the provincial level for the provincial government, and they quote unquote lost $1 billion, I don't think they lost it. Like, I don't think it was left, behind somewhere at a Tim Hortons when they were on a road trip. I think that somebody got that money. And so, we've got to be honest about what this is. To cut waste, I'd cut out the fluoride from our water supply. Costs $450 million a year. Montreal and Vancouver don't use it. And do they know something we should? I think so. And I think they know something that we do, because many people in Toronto do know that fluoride is not good for us. And so there just needs to be some sort of push to get it out so that, we can stop using it. Even your dentist says spit it out. And maybe on the top of your teeth it works fine, like Ajax or Windex or any other cleaner or toothpaste, but we shouldn't be swallowing it. So there's a number of things I'd cut like that. I'd cut cops at construction sites where those people don't need any protection. Like, even if you're in your car, you're not going to mess with 6 construction workers. So there doesn't need to be a cop there. If there's a guy with a yellow sign, stop. Let them direct you around, whatever they're working on, and leave it at that. Anything in our city, I think, is our jurisdiction. If you don't like the big new, G20 cop cameras in your neighborhood, let us know and we'll take them down because we think that you should have some control. If you don't like, helicopters flying very low when they don't appear to be trying to save a life, they're just sort of, lazily flying low around the city and they're, harassing condos and condo owners in this city, tell them to get up, tell them to get a lot higher up there. If you don't like the 6-foot fences, on Bloor Street, right now in the Uptown Fashion District, just a little bit west of Yonge, and you think, what, that's a little excessive, fences that high, let's have them, waist high. We don't need to be penned in like that, with slow moving traffic beside us. It just doesn't need to be that claustrophobic. And these are all things that we can cut. These are all things that we can look at, and ultimately I do a full and public audit of the city. The fourth campaign platform is encouraging people in Toronto to spend 1 hour, just 1 hour. I strongly say just 1 hour a week, staying in touch with your city, elected officials, city councilors, school board trustees, mayor's office, and city employees to help us resist the influence from corporate lobbyists, from other special interest groups, from international bodies, to give us a bit of cover fire so that we can let what we're up to, and we'll know there's an audience there. We're not going out on a limb, and acting like a whistleblower and getting fired and maybe not getting the media coverage we should. We can actually say to the people, look, we have these international groups proposing these ideas. What do you think? And so, different people can take different interest levels in that. But I recommend if most adults in Toronto decide to spend 1 hour a week, then they can help get the Toronto they want. And finally, and this is an idea I've been testing since the summer of 2009. I really think that if these issues are seen as tough to deal with by some in our culture, then I think that more men should deal with them on behalf of women, children, and the elderly in this culture. I think that that's the way tribes have historically, withstood attacks from outside for years. I think it's how we can, withstand this attack on our country's sovereignty, and by extension, our city and the people in it, from international institutions and multinational corporations. And I think we'd all feel better. I think men would feel better. I think we'd get more respect. And I think that women, children, and the elderly would appreciate it. And I know there's many great women, fighting in this fight. I would never stop anybody from doing it, many doing it better than I do. So it's a non-issue when it comes to that. But I think the impetus, and this is not an official policy or law or mandate or anything, but the mayor, as the former mayor said in their conversation, the mayor has a bit of a bully pulpit. And so while I wouldn't, be abusive about it, because I'd certainly get feedback if that was the case, I would certainly say that this is a good idea. If, just like we have for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, if men would help man up and defend this culture. And frankly, tough guys should not be afraid to look at what millions of nerds look at. If you go online, you'll see the Obama Deception, 7.5 million views. You'll see, all these other movies, and Alex Jones has 1 million, 2 million listeners a day. And there's all these people out there looking into this information, and yet our socialization makes it tough to talk about. And we don't want to bring it up, and we certainly don't want to, in many cases, have it ruin, our good time. But there has to be a time and place for everything. And so, we should find a time and place, all of us. But certainly I think men should, and groups of men should find a time and place to deal with these issues, to address these issues. If there are any physical dangers involved, if there's any sort of run-ins with the law that are unfortunate, we're more physically capable of handling those. And so, I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody or any of us. And I've been treated, very well by the city, by the people in the city, by the police in the city, who ID'd me several times during the G20, but were polite about it. Because I think people sense at this time in history that if you're coming from the right place and you're putting out, a clear, simple, message that is intending to help people, then you can get respect in this culture and you can get appreciation in this culture. And I've tried to prove that. And I think if we all do that a little more often, we could get some things done quick. So there's an idea of my basic campaign platform with, of course, a few details.
Yes, and very concise and precise, I should say. I just need about the media coverage, and it's like it's almost hard to break through. It's like you almost have to give the people the tools to get through the crust there that sort of blocks the flow of some kind of new information. Like it is the way the corporate media sort of cements the issues, and there's no wiggle room. It appears there's no wiggle room until you get some tools or something, some kind of like breath of fresh air, and then all of a sudden, you can sort of start to understand what the real issues are, the ones that aren't really being dealt with by the corporate